Welcome to the Wheats on Your Mind podcast. My name is Aaron Harries. Wheats on Your Mind is brought to you by the Kansas Wheat Commission and Kansas Association of Wheat Growers. In this episode, we catch up with Justin Gilpin, the CEO of Kansas Wheat, and talk about current wheat issues. Justin, so much has happened in the wheat world since our last visit. Let's catch up on some activities both globally and here at the Wheat Innovation Center, but maybe we should start by taking a look at what the 2023 wheat crop was. It's in the bins now, and USDA tells it's 201 million bushels, which is not good.
It was a tough year. I think historically, when we look back on this crop, it'll be one of those years that hopefully was a generational type year especially for Southwest Kansas. You know, when you have that high of abandonment with the crop, 29% abandonment of the planted acres, it's hard to find another year. Some people will reference 1989. You probably remember that harvest better than I do, Aaron. But
I believe we're the same age, but thank you. Yeah.
Okay. But it was certainly one that gets talked about as the only thing that could somewhat rival this. But, you know, when you put it in context with the difficult year we had last year, early in my career, when somebody told me one time, you know, a drought is really tough to get through, but back-to-back droughts can be devastating. And I think that's one of the things we're seeing with last year's wheat production for Kansas being at 244 million bushel production, and this year, you know, a historically low number of 201 million bushel. Those 2 years back-to-back, you know, looking at the numbers to find a back-to-back year productions like that for Kansas that is under 500 million bushels in consecutive years, you have to get back to the 1950s to find a year like that. And that's one of the reasons why we've seen some of the pricing dynamics. You've seen, you know, some of the challenges we're having with hard red winter wheat exports. It's going to take us a while to get back out of this from a U.S. hard red winter wheat standpoint because of this drought. Now, hopefully we get off to a good start. Unfortunately, it's been a little dry here in October as the wheat's going in the ground right now. So time will tell, knock on wood. But 2023 wheat harvest, you're certainly right, Aaron. It's going to go down in the record books as maybe one that we want to hopefully forget.
Yeah, 29% abandonment, which probably has a little bit of impact on plantings. And I should say we're recording this episode of the podcast on October 16th. And so let's take a little peek at 2024. Planting winding down in the state right now. Planting conditions have been dry for the most part. And we talked to farmers, and some planting into moisture, some in really dry conditions. No rain in the forecast, very limited, at least until the last week in October. What are you hearing from farmers?
It's varying, right? You know, you're hearing some challenges, some varieties on seed availability as far as getting seed to plant. Some varieties that are being sought after because of the challenges on production that we had this last year. Some seed is sold out. You know, we're kind of waiting on soybean harvest to finish up and moisture that may ultimately dictate how many acres get planted in that central corridor. Western Kansas, you know, some of our farmers that, you know, they sound a little bit optimistic because they actually, for the first time in several years, have been able to get wheat in the ground that's actually into moisture and seeing wheat emerge like it's supposed to. You know, early on, there's some optimism out there because the subsoil moisture profiles are better than what they've seen in recent memory. The overall acreage, you know, last year at 8.1 million acres, and yeah, I know this is where you and I probably can, you know, maybe debate a little bit. The low planted acres for Kansas was for the 2020 harvest was 6.6. So in 3 years, the state of Kansas has increased wheat planting acres from 2020 to last year's 2023 harvest from 6.6 to 8.1. So 1.5 million acres have transitioned back into wheat. And so if the consensus by a lot of analysts right now is that winter wheat acres will be up in the United States by roughly 3 to 5%, it's so early to tell. But if you apply that to Kansas, if Kansas would be up another 5%, I mean, you're talking about adding almost 2 million acres in 4 years for the state of Kansas. So intuitively, I think it's going to be hard for Kansas to increase that many more acres. And I think overall, once it's all said and done, we'll be closer to flat compared to last year. But time will tell. Let's see if we get some moisture to plant into.
Yeah, the question is where those acres going to come from. They have to come from some other commodity, and I think that's pretty hard to pin down, especially with the unique situation we have with bean fields abandoned, cornfields abandoned. How are guys going to interrupt their crop rotation? So a lot of guessing, looking forward on what's going to happen. The price has taken a hit the last couple of weeks, and farmers a lot don't want to hear that, but it has increased competitiveness somewhat for hard red winter wheat on the global marketplace.
Well, we've at the time of recording this, again, like as you mentioned, things can change pretty rapidly. That's the risk with recording this and playing it later. Things we say right now, we could be wrong by this afternoon. But it's been encouraging to see some flash sales of soft red winter wheat to China. China has on the books right now almost the largest amount of soft red winter wheat on the books for importing from the United States and since probably about 2014. So that's encouraging, and certainly China, COFCO, a government buyer, they're pretty price sensitive, and seeing them come to the market is an indicator that the U.S. has gotten priced competitively. For soft red winter wheat, there has been some incremental hard red winter wheat business done also. Overall exports on the last the USDA WASDE report, look at that, world numbers, but then the United States, they did take down hard red winter wheat exports again. It was already at 155 million. I think they put it down to 145 million expected for export this year. Right now we're tracking, the U.S. wheat exports are kind of on pace to hit what USDA is forecasting, even though it's a very poor number. But we are kind of lagging in all exports. If you look across the board, corn and soybeans probably showing some significant lagging behind USDA forecast. But wheat right now may have, as far as forecasts go, may have reached that bottom, and hopefully we see some incremental business. And of course, everything that's going on geopolitically and all the conflict that's going on in the world has everybody kind of sitting on the edge of their seat to see what happens.
Yeah, things globally have not calmed down since the last time you and I visited. Not only do we have the ongoing situation in Ukraine with Russia's invasion and a report out this morning of a lot of Ukrainian wheat being destroyed, but we have the Israel thing on the map now. And we've talked about it before. It used to be where the United States was positioned to use food as a really strong tool for diplomacy, and that doesn't seem to be the case anymore.
Well, as part of that op-ed article that went out on War on the Rocks about, is the United States losing breadbasket diplomacy, I think that it definitely deserves a broader discussion about how we want to position ourselves with our internal policy for not only for food security but for national security. On are we making the right decisions at the national and global level in trying to protect our agricultural infrastructure, and then also our ability to be a major player and have that as a tool in the toolbox when doing diplomacy. So it's more about than just being a trade partner. When the United States after the Cold War was able to have such a dominant presence with being able to deliver not only humanitarian assistance but being an agricultural superpower and being able to promote free market systems to commodities around the world, it was a one way of helping create stability. And so when the United States was able to do that, it was one of the reasons why, and I'm definitely not a foreign affairs expert by any means, but as we feel, it just feels like we're in, obviously in a world that's got a lot of instability at play, and as part of that reason, because we've lost somewhat of that influence that's causing that instability, because is the United States able to be not only from a military, economic, political, but I do believe when you look at that cache of things that we want to be able to provide to the world, we have to, from a policy standpoint, include that agricultural food security piece as well from a diplomacy standpoint. And as we're walked in to record this, obviously the Israeli Defense Forces are getting marketing along the border and the Gaza Strip and on the northern part with Lebanon and what all may escalate. I think that's what has everybody on edge. Now, does that have a direct impact to wheat and commodities? Maybe it's a bigger thing at play here to worry about other than that. Certainly, as the U.S. is potentially trying to be drawn in here by other influences, really makes one sit back and think, have we done all the right things from a policy standpoint and together to actually have a strong voice from the United States, from the free market system to really try to help negotiate peace and hope out of this?
Through your leadership and the leadership of our farmer board members in Congress, a bipartisan act was recently introduced, the American Farmers Feed the World Act. And that is kind of that move to make sure the food stays in food aid. Is that correct?
Well, that's the main premise behind it. If the United States is going to be able to provide humanitarian support, that hopefully we're doing that in a mechanism that is providing food and commodities produced by U.S. producers, U.S. policy-funded agricultural systems to help deliver that message. And you know as well as I do, when food is received by those that are in desperate need of that food, when it shows up in a bag saying this is a donation from the United States of America, U.S. produced from farmers, it has a bigger message behind it than when they're trying to do assistance directly just with cash through other programs.
Well, let's bring people up to speed on some activities here at the Kansas Wheat Innovation Center. Just as a refresher for our listeners, the Wheat Innovation Center is a farmer-owned, farmer-built research facility here in Manhattan on the north side of town. $15 million facility that really was designed 10 years ago to add on to the research capacity of the public breeding programs and provide services for wheat breeders around the world. But it's also become a showcase, so to speak, for both domestic and international visitors. And we've had a couple of trade teams come through Manhattan in the past few months. One of those was a Chilean team that wanted to talk about soft red winter wheat, which we do grow in the eastern part of the state, and a Colombian trade team.
Well, that's the kind of year we've had, Darren, when I'm reduced to
doing
marketing efforts. I'm promoting soft red winter wheat, but certainly soft red winter wheat has been a bright spot when it comes to export interest and being able to see buyers from where we have logistical advantages in Central and South America taking advantage of that opportunity. And soft red winter wheat is increasingly growing in some acreage in eastern Kansas. From a profitability standpoint, when you look at things that have tried to identify value for farmers at return per acre, and that's what we're really focused on doing here at the Innovation Center, is trying to use genetics to solve problems and create value for the wheat crop for our farmers. One of the things we talked about last week was, there's a new soft red winter wheat test plot in northeast Kansas that Corteva is sponsoring, and one of the reasons why is because in a soybean wheat rotation, getting that double crop, having high yielding wheat in that rotation, that's bringing value per acre. When you get 100 bushel wheat and 40 bushel soybeans, it's a profitable option for farmers to add wheat back into the rotation, and what that wheat does bringing back to the rotation beyond the value of the grain, which I know you work really hard at being able to communicate, is starting to become a stronger story. So we've had the multiple teams that have come through here, and it's such a unique opportunity where we're placed at the Kansas Wheat Innovation Center here on the North Campus of Kansas State University, where we have a great front door to be able to bring international customers there on behalf of wheat farmers and tell the Kansas wheat story, but all within a parking lot right here. We also have the International Grains Program Marketing Center, where they can spend several days marketing and educational opportunities, but then the hands-on opportunities on the north side of that same parking lot with the flour mill, feed mill, and the value-added center makes Manhattan pretty unique. And the fact that Kansas wheat farmers have a presence being right here is not just unique in the United States, but it's unique in the world, and a really great opportunity for Kansas wheat farmers.
It is a special neighborhood, and we had a great trade team from Colombia. Colombia is one of those countries we have a free free trade agreement with. It's very competitive space, Colombia, for wheat. We compete with Canada in that space, but the U.S. has a decent market share, and hopefully that will increase. One we're really looking forward to, Justin, in the first time in many, many years, there is a Chinese trade team that will be coming through here in Manhattan the last week in October. Why is that so special?
Well, everybody knows who Kafka is, probably alongside Gask and some other government buyers, maybe one of the most sought after and watched government buying entities, and having Kafka Group come in to travel the United States and be able to visit ports down in the Pacific Northwest and down in Houston at the Texas Gulf, but then be able to have them spend some time here in Manhattan. It's pretty unique and a good opportunity to visit with them. Well, we'll have representatives from the trade that will be here. We'll be able to talk about the Innovation Center, what's going on the variety development side of things, how farmers are investing in their own future and for improved genetics, and then being able to spend some time with them and have some of our farmer leadership be able to do some meetings and spend some informal time with them at a dinner. It's just pretty unique. In my time, I think the last time, it's been over almost 20 years since we've had a Kafka Group come through Kansas, and even though they're not buying a lot of hard red winter wheat, I think they've done some incremental business. We want to position ourselves for when they are in the market that they do see hard red winter wheat as a viable option, and how it does work for their domestic use and in their products, and what a great place to be able to host them and talk through those things, and hopefully have them leave here with a good feeling about U.S. hard red winter wheat and some things that could happen in the future.
And, of course, our domestic market, too, stateside here. We've had some milling and baking companies and milling short courses at IGP that have come through the Wheat Innovation Center also.
Well, it's unique when you have International Grains Program does host basic milling short courses and advanced milling short courses, where all of our domestic mills and mills in Canada will send their personnel, and they'll spend a week or 2 weeks in Manhattan training in the facility. I know you and I both like to try to sneak over and get lunch with them when we can.
Free lunch.
Yeah, free lunch. And then also for the visits, we had the opportunity to be able to spend some time this last week with some mill representatives from the Northeast milling companies, and being able to hear what they're seeing with the crop, how they're putting up blends. It really helps us understand, I probably learned as much talking with them as they learn from us why they're here. Having that interaction with the domestic milling industry, obviously our largest customers, really helps fortify that relationship going in the future on what we need to be doing from a production and management side of things, from a genetics and variety side of things, but then also how do we communicate those things with our domestic users so that farmers and our milling industry are in step in delivering flour to our bakers and our customers and consumers.
Well, we had a COG board meeting, the Kansas Association of Wheat Growers board meeting here in the Innovation Center a couple weeks ago. What's all on their table? I know Farm Bill is front and center.
Well, I think that was what we spent a lot of time talking about, is what's going to happen with the continuing resolution or Farm Bill extension, and watching some of the key deadlines, and of course working with our National Association of Wheat Growers. Having that presence in D.C. is a big part of what our Kansas Association of Wheat Growers does, and we've had so much past leadership that's had direct involvement at the national leadership level. So having our growers, be able to talk and communicate about what's going on after a recent fly-in that several of our farmers participated in, I think the end of the summer, the middle of the summer, to follow up on those things. But the big thing is just kind of watching what's going to happen with that. Most likely an extension, and for how long that extension may take place, and trying to see how that will impact and play out. But there's a lot of things happening in D.C. right now. We hope that they can get things a little bit more stability so we can have better discussions with what's going on and try to push some of the initiatives that we'd like to push. But right now it's more of waiting to hopefully let them get things kind of under control, and I know you've got some thoughts on that as well. But
I'll keep those to myself.
Okay.
Another VIP guest in the Innovation Center last week, Marshall Stewart, the Senior Vice President for Executive Affairs with K-State, essentially the Chief of Staff for President Linton, came to the Innovation Center. Great opportunity to visit with him. I'm pretty impressed.
Oh, yeah. Didn't you? I mean, isn't he just a special individual, Aaron?
Yes.
Dr. Stewart. We're fortunate to have him here at Kansas State University, and his leadership and the role that he's playing is a unique one. You know, he's involved with a lot of new plans that are coming out for Kansas State, some new initiatives that he is working side by side with President Linton on, and whether it's the expanding the Edge District, the new Global Center for Grain and Food Innovation, new Agronomy Innovation Center, all things that are happening under their leadership. And for him to be able to be in our Kansas Wheat Innovation Center and see the public-private partnerships that are already happening on campus here in the farmer-owned facility, I think was, I think he appreciated spending some time. We had two of our grower leaders with Jay Armstrong and Justin Knopf were able to come in for that visit, but to see those discussions and seeing the type of things that can come out of private industry working with the university to try to identify not just research projects, but research projects that can result in commercializable value-adding prospects for our stakeholders, and seeing his intent of having Kansas State fulfill that land grant mission of adding value for Kansas. He gets the fact that through variety development, the economic impact that a variety can have when it's being grown in the state and adding bushels, the value from not just at the farm gate level, but from a rural community standpoint to a processing standpoint, and having Kansas State University has that as one of their priorities is exciting to see, as well as working with the grain science department on the milling, baking, and feed side of things. Kansas is the leader in pet food manufacturing in the state of Kansas, flour milling capacity with the new protein facilities coming online in Kansas, the baking expansions and leading ingredient suppliers we have in the state of Kansas are all so relevant for what Kansas State is doing from a land grant standpoint. And having him and his leadership and his understanding, it's pretty exciting to sit back and listen to him and see their vision.
Yeah, Dr. Linton and Dr. Stewart have an exciting vision of what a modern land grant should be, and Kansas wheat farmers are well positioned through the Wheat Innovation Center to play an exciting role in that. Well, you mentioned research on new variety development, a couple of new varieties released this year from Kansas State University. And towards the end of the year here, we'd like to remind people that if you're thinking about your year-end giving, we do have the Kansas Wheat Commission Research Foundation. Of course, checkoff dollars always go, a portion of those, to fund wheat research. Commissioners will spend $1.3 million on funding wheat research activities at Kansas State almost every year. But on a year like this, when we've got a smaller crop, we've created this foundation to kind of take out the ups and downs of research funding in the future. So if folks are interested in giving a gift, we encourage you to go to www.fieldsforward.org and learn more about that. And a lot of farmers take the opportunity to donate grain. That is one option you can do, but we'd be happy to talk about that with you, and it's really about long-term sustainability of research funding and support of the Kansas Wheat Innovation Center.
Yeah, it's absolutely a good program, and the work that you and Tammy McClellan do, working with donors and our founding group, when you have that foundation in place, trying to sustain wheat research for the future, it is going to be a strong component. And being able for individuals to make a tax-deductible charitable contribution that's dedicated to wheat research is a unique opportunity through that Fields Forward program.
And as always, come visit us in Manhattan at Kansas Wheat Innovation Center. Give us a call. We're always happy to show off the place to whoever might have an interest in seeing it. If you ever want to get a hold of us, just call our office at 785-539-0255. And our website is kansaswheat.com. Justin, thanks for joining us.
You bet. And if when you make that call to come see the Innovation Center, I would suggest that you specifically ask for Aaron Harries to be your tour guide. He is one of the best tour guides that we have, and how you did those 55th grade students the other day, which was a unique opportunity to get them through the labs, but just one example of the miracles that you were able to pull off, Aaron.
Well, I've done what any smart person would I delegated that to some young ladies in the office who were better equipped to handle that. But it was exciting to have grade school kids through the Innovation Center. Start them young, right? Get them learning about agriculture early on.
Well, the Innovation Center is an excellent opportunity to be able to tell the Kansas wheat story. And I don't think any of us saw that opportunity that we would be presented with a number of people that do want to come through while they're in Manhattan, being able to tell the Kansas wheat story, see the work that's going on from the genetics down in the labs and the greenhouses. I think everybody that is on a tour with Aaron does leave knowing more about wheat and seeing things with a different perspective. And so the more people we can have see things like that firsthand, we certainly welcome that opportunity.
But if you can't make it to Manhattan, we have a great new video on our website that does take you on a walk through the Wheat Innovation Center. So take a look at that and then come visit us here in Manhattan sometime. Justin, thanks.
Appreciate all you do, Aaron. Thank you very much.
My thanks to Justin Gilpin, the CEO of Kansas Wheat, for catching up with us on this Wheat's on Your Mind podcast. Remember, if you have questions about a certain podcast or ideas for a future podcast, please email us at podcast@kswheat.com. I'm Aaron Harries. Thanks for listening.